Hi, everybody. So glad you could make it here today. My name is Shawn Young. I am the CEO and co-founder of Classcraft. And today we're going to be meeting with a couple of educators that I'm really excited to present in just a few minutes. Um, but before that, we're going to be talking about just some of the impact Classcraft has had on positive behaviors and this past year throughout the pandemic. And before that happens, just a couple of housekeeping pieces. So first of all, welcome. I am so glad and excited to be having this conversation with you today. Also, I want to thank you for caring about this topic. I think student behavior, student engagement, student motivation are really important right now. And the fact that you're here listening to this just warms my heart. I think these are really important things to be talking about. So thank you for your time. Another piece is feel free to jump in and comment below and leave any comments you may have. Here we have we'll be able to follow those here throughout the stream, whatever platform you're using. You can start now if you want to just jump in with your location and just kind of kick us off. We'll have people joining us from all over the country. So getting started, a lot has happened in the past year, and it's been a really chaotic time to be in education. Also a really exciting time. As an educator, I've been in education my entire career. I feel like there's so much opportunity right now to, work through the challenges, of course, but also look towards the future and, take all the things we've learned this school year and, bring them into our practice as educators and really look towards how can we really, do what we've always done, take what we've learned this year, meet with kids again physically in person as soon as possible, and from there help them grow as human beings. And so speaking of that, a lot of teachers all over the world have been using Classcraft this year, and really proud to announce this statistic. We in the last year, 40 million positive behaviors were rewarded by teachers using Classcraft, and this is a huge number. It's also a really interesting number because, when we've been doing behavior intervention traditionally in a way that is, often schools will do things like PBIS, paper approaches, and there's a big question this year of like, are we going to be able to do this in virtual learning? And the evidence is out. Absolutely, yes. Tons of behavior has been rewarded. And also, what's fascinating is that the need to use behaviors as a way to drive student engagement and develop the skills kids need to be better learners transfers just as well in virtual learning and hybrid models as in person. And so, not surprised by this number, but really warmed by it. It means that teachers were supporting kids in a really powerful way. Now, supporting kids to do what, right? When we think about behavior intervention, we think about positive behaviors. It's easy to imagine what that looks like in, traditional settings. It'll be things like raising your hand when it's time, staying seated, being seated at the bell, using your hallway voice when walking in the hallway. These are the types of things we see in traditional settings. And so, one question that's interesting is to say, well, okay, so if all of that doesn't really exist, what behaviors were teachers reinforcing? And so we built a set of standards for students to become better distance learners. And that was used by a lot of teachers last year. And some of the behaviors in there really shown. So the first one was in relation to distance learning, showing up for video lesson on time and ready to learn. Hands down, the number one positive behavior that was rewarded last year in Classcraft. No big surprise there. On the other hand, what's interesting is that the things that we expect for kids in traditional models, showing up on time, being ready to learn, have your books open and ready. These types of behaviors are synonymous with brick and mortar experiences, but translated immediately into virtual settings. And so when we think about some of the challenges that teachers have faced this year was things like, hey, the kids aren't showing up. They're in their pajamas, their camera's off, their mic is off. And so a huge need to just teach kids what it means to be present and what it means to participate in an online class. And so lots of that happening. What's fascinating as well is that in Classcraft, you can remove hit points, remove lives for negative behaviors. And best practice around PBIS is 4-to-1. You should be reinforcing a positive behavior 4 times more often than you are acting on negative behaviors. In systems that don't have PBIS, often it'll be flipped 4 times more negatives to positives, which is, hey, don't do that, be quiet, stop talking. In PBIS, we try to flip that around with like, thanks for being seated, a good job on, doing what you're supposed to be doing. 4-to-1. What we saw traditionally with Classcraft, we always see a better ratio than 4-to-1. In 2019, it was 7-to-1. But last year, 15-to-1. And this is really amazing when you think about what it means. Teachers at scale, in a very strong way, said, you know what I want to do this year is encourage kids, cheer them on, give them the high fives that they need to continue to develop themselves as good distance learners. Because ultimately, showing up for a video lesson on time and ready to learn, that is a behavior that makes you a good distance learner. Teachers have been re-educating kids all year about what it means to be a good learner. And the teachers using Classcraft have really decided and jumped in with on the bandwagon of saying, let's do this in the most positive way possible. And so this 15x number is just really impressive. Second number from distance learning, being positive and hardworking. So student engagement was at the core of what we've been struggling with all year in education. And this number on its own is really interesting. It demonstrates that, hey, they were encouraging and focusing on helping kids stay engaged and do that in a way that was, positive first. Now, speaking of engagement, being positive and hardworking is one thing. What about the data? What about the work that was completed in Classcraft? Well, in Classcraft, there's quests, and each objective on a quest is a lesson activity or worksheet or video students need to watch. 10 million of these objectives were completed by students. We're going to hear from some educators in just a second about how transformative this has been. But really, the core of the experience here is empowering kids to be in charge of their own learning, move themselves through a quest line that looks and feels like an adventure, and using the best practices of personalized learning to do that. And so an insane amount of activity here, and going well beyond, just, complete this assignment or, do this little quiz, but actually doing rich, robust tasks that kids can complete. And so last slide here is, again, completing online activities, another measure of engagement we wanted to encourage. Obviously, teachers needed to signify to kids, hey, you're completing this coursework, good job. But beyond that, one of the big challenges we've had is around social emotional learning, mental health, learning communities. How can we keep kids connected to one another in a social and emotionally viable way that will lead to, them having good mental health? And in Classcraft, there's a way for students to send each other messages to encourage each other, and they both get points. It's called kudos. Basically, a note they can send to each other that gets validated to the teacher that'll say things like, thank you so much for helping me on my, assignment, or, hey, thanks for being so positive in class today, etc. 350,000 positive notes from one student to another, giving them a shout out and recognition around the great things they're doing, showing up to school. This is crazy because it's not just click a button. They actually have to write a hand typed. I was going to say handwritten, but of course it's typed, hand typed note to another student. And so putting, of course, their writing skills to good use, but beyond that, doing the effort to go above and beyond to recognize their peers. In a time where, it's been so hard to connect with other human beings, it's been really rewarding to see that type of activity happening at scale. And so these are just some examples of the fantastic impact Classcraft can have in terms of driving student motivation, driving better behaviors that lead to skill development, and fostering a wholesome, robust classroom community. And the data speaks for itself, but we've also worked with some incredible schools this year. Given the challenges that existed for all students and educators, it's just been really amazing to see them at work. And so without further ado, let me welcome Donna Davis and Lauren Veras from East Elementary, a school in North Carolina. They've been using Classcraft in the past year with a lot of success. Hey, Donna. Hey, Lauren. So glad to have you here. Just for everybody's sake, Donna Davis is the Instructional Technology Facilitator and Media Coordinator at East Elementary in Monroe, North Carolina. She's been there for 5 years. Before that, she was working in the North Carolina Community College System in the College and Readiness Department for 16 years. And some of her favorite things are relaxing in the mountains, 3 German Shepherds, Hans, Greta, and Aspen. So welcome, Donna. Really glad to have you here. And our second guest is Lauren Veras. She's the lead teacher at East Elementary. She's been there for 13 years. She began work as a kindergarten teacher, then moved into a science and technology position before becoming the multi-tiered systems of supports coordinator. She's got a passion for giving students the tools they need to grow in all areas of their lives, community outreach, all things tech. Lauren spends her time enjoying life with her husband, 1-year-old daughter, and 2 dogs. You are most likely to find them outdoors enjoying the North Carolina sunshine with bubbles and soccer. So first of all, there's an elephant in the room here. Between the two of you, you have 5 dogs. I'm pretty impressed by that. But joking aside, just tell us a bit about yourself. How did you live this pandemic? How have things been for you?
Want me to start, Lauren? It's a challenging year. We started off at the beginning of the year coming on an AB rotation with the kids coming 2 days a week, and then another group coming this other 2 days, and then Fridays have been remote for everybody, K through 12. And then sometime I think in the fall, the elementary schools went to 4 days a week. Friday stayed remote. Now we recently found out that after our spring break, when we return on the 12th of April, everybody K through 12 is coming back 5 days a week. So it has really been a year, I think, just full of changes and adapting. And that was, thinking of Classcraft at the beginning of our school year, Lauren and I got together and was like, what can we do? Really getting kids engaged and connected. We've always been for several years, we've been a PBIS school. So we're very familiar with the tiers and, the positive behavior. So this is Classcraft this has been a great time to introduce it because we really needed something like this.
Yeah, I mean the change. Sometimes when I talk about the last year, I say the challenge hasn't been distance learning; it's just been all the change, right? Mm-hmm. So kudos to you for navigating that. Lauren, you were going to say something.
You're fine. I was going to say that this has been a nice bridge to go between the 2 learning environments now, and that's where all that transition is. That's where things get very difficult for students. So having a tool that they can use in both environments has been very helpful.
Tell me a bit about that. How have you been using Classcraft in those different environments?
So my position is a little bit different than Donna's, and so different teachers use it in different ways. I'd say the majority of teachers have been able to introduce Quest and introduce positive behaviors in a face-to-face environment, and then apply those in the virtual environment on virtual days, which kind of just has led to an increased buy-in by students to show up and to participate. And then being able to introduce it face-to-face has also allowed students to be able to navigate the quests a little bit better when they are virtual, since we have younger students.
Has that been the same for you, Donna?
Yes. I mean, we have, and when we launched this, we did not launch it at the beginning of our school year. We launched it in mid-January. But I'm just looking at the numbers now. We've had almost 20,000 students log in to Classcraft.
It's incredible, January,
right? 8th, 9th, somewhere around there. So that's, and a little bit over 5,500 objectives completed. So students, they are engaged with this and they are connected to this. And when Fridays have been remote for us since the fall, and we launched this in specials and a few of our classroom teachers, and we've had it's kind of spread now. We've had more classroom teachers get on board. But because Fridays was remote in mid-February, we started doing like Friday Quest that focused around our Health Science Academy. And the very first Friday we launched that, and that was our struggle, kids not doing academic work on Fridays. But that very first Friday, we've really promoted that at the school. We had over 400 kids complete objectives. That's
amazing. That's amazing.
And that was, it's like, it works. They engage, they connect to this, they get their rewards immediately. And we've seen every Friday since then, we've seen those numbers. The kids are there, they're doing the work, they're engaged. So
and that's 400 of about 450 students.
Yeah, thanks for, I knew that, but thanks for letting everybody else know.
Well, and not even that, because most of the kids doing the academic quest are our 2nd through 5th graders. So that number is even smaller when you think of the number of students that are going in and looking at the quest. But they are doing the work.
That's incredible. I mean, I think that the impact here, everybody's been struggling with student engagement all year, being able to, so easily, this is a great proof point, because you're so easily able to say, well, on Fridays, this is what was happening, and they were using Classcraft, and we have a before and after. Did you see that Friday engagement have an impact throughout the rest of the week? Do you think that the engagement that they were demonstrating around academic success bled over into the other parts of their day?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when they are engaged academically and they're on task, that's a key behavior that we're looking for. So doing the academic work, the kids were on task and they were following our behavior expectations just by being engaged and focused academically in a platform that they could relate to. So that really transcended into really improved, I think, behaviors as well.
And what were those behavior expectations? Was there anything special because it was Classcraft, or did you just use what you already had for PBIs?
Our school,
we had 2 sets of expectations. We had our virtual expectations and in-person.
Perfect. No, but can you believe it? A lot of schools didn't do that. So I'm glad to hear that. Did you find that you were using Classcraft to help students be better learners virtually with the virtual behaviors? And what were those behaviors?
They were, I think, like, being logged in on time, being ready, having an area that you can work and focus on, that you don't have a lot of distractions around you. You have your camera on. And I know one of our teachers that started from the very beginning with us when we launched this was one of our virtual academy teachers. And so she had different point values for just logging on and attending a session, but a higher point value if you were participating and engaged. So I know when she was putting the specific behaviors for her class, she was adding in a lot of those virtual expectations for her students.
And then when you were back in person, using the same system to give points is a big win, right? It's not like you had one thing,
and
for
I would say they were
virtual
just more invested. Yeah, and I would say they were more invested. We've had the same behavior expectations for a few years now, and I think adding in Classcraft in person made them more invested in it because it was like a self-reward. They want to get those Classcraft points. I want to level up, and so that just kind of upped their level of interest in what we were already doing.
Tell me a bit about, like, why do you I mean, I have all kinds of theories, and we've done a bunch of research on this, but from your perspective, what was it about Classcraft that made that happen? Because even if it hadn't been for the pandemic, that would be a win, right?
Yeah, and I think it's just those naturally engaging things. Like I think about games that I might play, like I'm trying to learn another language on another platform, and when I get so many points, I get a little outfit for my little person, right? And that's just naturally engaging. I want to have that outfit for whatever reason, and it's the same for kids. I run interventions with our most at-risk students, and I had a student log on today, and the very first thing they asked me was, how close am I to my next level? So they're just very invested in it.
It's so fascinating. I mean, I developed Classcraft in my own classroom, and it was, leagues away from what it is today. But even that prototypical version, like when you see students come and tell you things like that, you're like, whoa, something's really happening here. Like I was teaching high schoolers, and I would have a senior on the football team come up and say, hey, how many gold pieces do I need for my bear helmet I've been saving all week? I'm like, wow, you have a real job. Like you're 17 and this matters, right? It's just fascinating to see that. And I think that, like, one of the big things we saw this year as well was like just Classcraft having a measurable impact on attendance. Have you felt that happened for you guys as well?
For remote attendance?
Yeah. Remote attendance. Everybody struggled with remote attendance, even just tracking that. But anecdotally, were you able to see a difference?
Yeah, I know. And see, I would see some of the students on a kind of a weird, or on a rotating schedule. And when we launched Classcraft, there were students that I started seeing virtually, the virtual academy kids, that I had not seen prior, like the first half of the year. And now they're showing up.
That's amazing. Wait, like they were not showing up, and now it's not like they were kind of showing up, or you started right away. It was like they were almost not there at all, and turning this on made that difference for them.
And some of them, maybe I'll see them some, but I can see that they're doing the work. Like they can see, because I can message them in Classcraft and tell them what's happening, what the quest is, and they may pop in the first few minutes, but I can see that they're working. They may sign off, or log off the meet, but I can see that they're still in and moving through their objectives.
Amazing.
So,
And the nature of mine is it's very face-to-face and very intensive. And so I started giving points on virtual dates for showing up. And then at the end, I would give points for like actual engagement and actual work. And so I had a big increase, not so much in who showed up, but in who engaged all the way through and didn't have a technical glitch by the end. It just was really there.
Technical glitch. Kids are so creative. So you don't know about attendance, but you do know that somehow there was less technical glitches. It made the computers work better. Sounds great.
Magic.
That's amazing. And do you feel like the experience that you've had so far this year with Classcraft has, given you a new perspective on the work you're doing? Does it change the way you approach your job? Has the I find that we hear so often that the being able to actually have a way to really engage with kids in a way is a game changer. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And I think one thing that's when I think of just kind of reflecting on my own practice is, I mean, I always knew that, especially with elementary kids, they needed to reward, they need their reward very soon, as from,
Yeah.
from their positive behavior, their academic work, they need that reward soon. And I think that's just really reinforced that for me, because they get that gear, they level up. And they get so excited about it, and they want to share it with their classmates. Check out my gear, check out my new avatar. And another thing that I think I have found really fascinating is the kudos. And how our kudos, and Lauren and I have talked about this, how they have become much more meaningful than they did. At first it was good job, but now they're in their kudos. They will specify a very specific behavior. Good job. I saw you watching the teacher, or I saw you listening carefully. You did a great job on your debate. I mean, so they're very, very specific. And I think they get some kind of intrinsic reward. I think we all like to get complimented. And it's one thing to say, Lauren, you do great work. But when I kind of can say specifically what she's doing, that's so wonderful, and how it impacts things. So that's made me realize too, what can I do when I instead of saying, good job, I could say good job for doing this. Be very specific in what you're rewarding them, or your positive announcement, your little shout out. That really surprised me.
That's super interesting.
Skills.
Yeah. Well, it's when we build all the feature set of Classcraft, we're always thinking about, like, how can these interactions foster social emotional learning, right? And when we built Kudos, it was really about it was like, hey, let's take some work off the teacher by having kids be able to give each other points. Like, we're also always thinking about how can we make less work for teachers. But the second part was, how can we develop those skills of being able to recognize another student's strengths? And that's a social emotional learning skill that is, really important. And this type of culture, I'm really happy to be hearing all this, by the way. Like, the cultural change that this has in your school is really evident, and it's a culture of positive feedback that is relevant. And it's not just the teachers doing PBIS giving positive reinforcements. It's everybody in the school, the peers together being able to do that, I think is, pun intended, a game changer. I think that's really great, Donna. Lauren, you were going to say something as well.
I very much agree. I think there is a lot of social emotional built in, and it just, like, that piece to me just helps students build their social relationship skills, which is so huge for children. And then I also feel like there's this piece of self-identity that's tied to it, that kids don't always get to have a very strong self-identity. And this is a piece where they can express that. Like, I can determine how I want to use things in Classcraft. I can determine what I want to, like, when I level up, I can determine what my character looks like. I can determine what powers I want to use and when and for who. And there's just this level of building their self-identity in that's very powerful.
But when we look at motivation theory, it's, there's three core factors. One is competency. So being able to see your progress. So that speaks to what Donna was saying about, like, the rewards have to happen fast, but it's not just because of the dopamine hit. It's also because being able to, map your action to your progress is super motivating. Something that we don't do enough of in education. We're like, here's your grade, and like, I gave it to you 4 weeks later. They're like, oh, I forgot I even did that project. That's happened to all of us. And the second one is control. So being in control, and that's what you're talking about, being able to express your identity, make decisions about your day as a school child. These situations where we can be in the driver's seat are super motivating. And then the third one is relatedness, so social connections with other human beings. And that's where things like the kudos and the teamwork all come in. So, I I love that the practice here is reflecting back, the psychology that's kind of inherent in our design. I really appreciate that. Do you have any closing words? I mean, we're right on time. It's 30. Maybe we have some questions we can get from the audience if there's any. But if not, maybe some closing words just before we sign off.
I'll just say that I'm was so excited to launch this at the school. Lauren and I, and to work with Lauren with it. She and I have worked together for a few years now, and she and I work well together. We really kind of complement each other's. Our jobs are different, but we complement each other's with the work that we do.
You're so lucky to have that, by the way. That's amazing.
I knew that Classcraft would be engaging, but I think it's been more successful than even I had expected. So I'm really excited to even moving forward into next year to see it kind of grow in our school. It's really been, I can't speak any higher of Classcraft. I think it's just fabulous. I mean, it's amazing.
You're making me blush. I'll make sure the team is, if they're not watching, they hear about it. Really appreciate it. I mean, honestly, that's what we're working for every single day. It's for this type of impact. So that really warms my heart. Oh no, Lauren is gone. It was her closing statement.
Oh no.
We'll give her like 2 seconds. I think this is maybe one of her 2 dogs. Unplug the router or something. We do have a question here. So from Madeline Watson, what's your most inspiring student from a story from a student? So like, what's your favorite anecdote that happened this year?
I mean, for me, I think, when I see some of our students that have struggled over the last few years, and seeing them connect to this and engage, that was super just rewarding for me, because as much, and they are, I remember one of the hardest students to kind of keep on task and to manage behaviors. The first time he leveled up, he jumped out of his seat and was so excited. And just to see those,
literally jumped out of his seat, right?
Yeah, he literally, because I had him with me at the time, and he literally jumped out of his seat and was so excited. Number one, that he leveled up, but then he wanted to share it with, check out
everybody else.
it was, so I think that's when I'm, as an educator, when you see students that have struggled academically to stay on task and behaviorally, to see them really connect to something like this and be excited about it and want to share about it. That's what's, I think, just super exciting.
Well, some of these children have really struggled, and Classcraft gives them a way to feel like they have value and they're progressing, right? Like, I got these points, I leveled up, they're my points, I earned them, is just such a valuable mind shift change for them, right? Versus, I'm a bad student, I have all these problems. It's really super empowering. Lauren, you made it back. So glad you're back. Maybe you can wrap us up here with what is your most inspiring story from a student?
So we
have even more questions. Maybe this won't be a wrap up. Sorry. So go ahead.
I would mirror what Donna says. I think there are a lot of things that can make an effect on your general student. There are a lot of kids in this world that will just grow with anything, but a really effective thing, a really effective program is
Donna, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Right. You know what I love about 2021? 2 years ago, we would have been all panicking. Now it's like, oh, this is just normal life. Like,
okay.
Okay. Corinna, maybe you can pop up that other question, and we can. So we have another question here, Donna, from Bell. Do you have a story of how to engage a student who only views tasks but does not deliver or participate? How do you make them feel comfortable to share struggles with a teacher that they never saw in person?
So I'm assuming she's talking about the academic quest. And
or maybe she's not even talking about Classcraft. I mean, I think this is a broader question for you based off of your expertise.
You know, what I found and maybe this was something else too that was somewhat surprising to me, is that students that never participated, didn't want to speak, weren't comfortable sharing and speaking, they want to share their Classcraft character. They want to write kudos. I mean, and I guess it's also because, you know, kind of that gamified platform, they are comfortable in that world.
Of course.
So even the students that were shy, they come out of their shell and they feel comfortable sharing out. You know, whether it's through a kudos or just getting up. When we're in the very beginning, I would kind of wrap up maybe at the end of the week a class, be like, hey, let's share your characters, your avatars. And they wanted, I mean, kids that would never want to speak before, you know, they're standing up wanting to talk about their characters. So there's just, I mean, and it was just natural. It became natural for them. And that was something else I think that was surprising.
I think what's interesting is, like, when you have a system like Classcraft, inherently what's happening because of it's designed as to look and feel like a game. There's equal opportunity, right? Whatever baggage you have coming into school is left at the door in Classcraft, and everybody's just on an even level playing field. We're all just, you know, guardians and healers and mages, and everybody has equal opportunity to get, you know, Classcraft points. Just show up and do what you got to do, and you're going to level up. And I think that like that part of it, like your avatar is a proxy for you, creates a buffer zone between your own, you know, struggles as a human being and what you're able to share with the world, right? Like your avatar is all just about all the great stuff you're doing, and let me show you all about that, and allows kids to just open up, right?
Well, and I know we're running out of time, but another thing that I've noticed, kids that normally would not talk to each other or wouldn't hang out with each other, all of a sudden are, you know, look at, you know, he's on level 10. Look where he is. I want to get there. And so
I should go like be friends with him.
Some communication and collaboration amongst students that normally would not. But there's some admiration about someone that's maybe 2 or 3, 4 levels higher. So it's really built, I think, that classroom community, the positive relationships and role models amongst the students. It's been amazing. I mean, it really has.
I am so happy to hear that. Can't wait to continue working with you. And I want to, you know, do 2 things. First of all, we'll thank Lauren. Yeah, maybe she's listening to us now. Who knows? Bye, Lauren. But also thank you, Donna. And
thank you.
Really appreciate your willingness to come on here today and just share these stories and the impact Classcraft has had on student behavior, student culture, student engagement, attendance. These are all things that, you know, a lot of people care about right now and that we care about deeply. And just to be able to hear from you and how you've been experiencing it has been really enriching. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. And not Lauren, I've got some text from her. So.
Yeah, exactly. You can go see your text explode. Well, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Good luck with, you know, walking all the dogs this weekend.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.